The Kind Sister and the Winter Flowers. Once upon a time, nestled deep in a snowy valley, lived a kind girl named Marushka. Marushka lived with her stepmother and stepsister, Holina, who were both very mean and very lazy. Marushka did all the chores. She swept the wooden floors, fed the chickens, and even chopped the wood in the freezing cold. Holina and her mother spent their days wrapped in warm blankets, sipping hot tea, and finding ways to make Marushka's life even harder. Marushka! Holina would shriek, "Fetch me another cushion. And be quick about it." One day, in the middle of winter, when the snow lay thick and white like a giant blanket, Holina had a terrible craving. "I want some violets," she declared, wrinkling her nose. "Right now." Her mother chuckled, a dry, raspy sound. "Violets? In the middle of winter? You are a silly girl, Holina." "I don't care." Holina stamped her foot. "I want violets, and Marushka will get them for me." She pointed a finger at Marushka, who was mending a torn coat by the fire. "Go to the forest, Marushka. And don't come back without a basket full of violets." Marushka's heart sank. "But Holina," she pleaded, "it's winter. The ground is frozen, the snow is deep. There are no violets now. Don't argue with me." Holina screeched. "Or you'll be sorry. Go. And don't forget the basket." With tears freezing on her cheeks, Marushka wrapped her thin shawl tighter around herself and trudged into the snowy forest. The wind howled like a hungry wolf, and the snow crunched under her worn boots. She walked and walked, her fingers numb, her toes tingling with cold. Finally, she came to a small clearing. In the center of the clearing, she saw something amazing. A bright fire blazed, and around the fire were 12 figures, all sitting on stone thrones. They were all different, some young, some old, some with long beards, some with twinkly eyes. They were the 12 months. Seeing Marushka, the oldest month, January, with his long white beard like frozen branches, spoke in a voice like the wind whispering through the trees. "What brings you here, little one, on such a cold and blustery day?" Marushka, trembling with cold and fear, curtsied low. I was sent here by my stepsister to find violets. But it's winter, and there are no violets to be found." The months looked at each other with understanding smiles. January nodded slowly. "Each of us rules over a month of the year, and each month brings its own gifts. It is indeed winter. But perhaps we can help you." January stood up and handed his place by the fire to March, who was younger and whose hair was the color of melting snow. March smiled at Marushka. He waved his hand, and the wind softened to a gentle breeze. The snow began to melt, revealing patches of green grass. Tiny buds sprouted on the bare branches of the trees. Then, from under the melting snow, tiny purple flowers began to peek out. Violets! The air filled with their sweet scent. Marushka gasped with delight. She quickly filled her basket with the beautiful violets. March smiled again and said, "Hurry home now, little one, before January returns and the snow falls again." Marushka thanked the 12 months with all her heart and hurried back through the forest. When she arrived home, Holina and her mother couldn't believe their eyes. They were astonished to see a basket overflowing with fragrant violets. "Where did you get those?" Holina demanded, snatching the basket. "Tell me." Marushka, remembering the month's kindness, didn't want to share their secret. I found them growing under the snow," she said quietly. Holina didn't believe her. "Under the snow? Humph. I want strawberries now," she said. "Go and get me a basket of strawberries." But Helena, Marushka cried, strawberries don't grow in winter. They grow in June. I don't care when they grow. Helena shrieked. Go, or you'll regret it. So, poor Marushka had to go back into the cold winter forest, shivering and sad. Again, she found the clearing and the 12 months sitting around the fire. This time, April was warming himself by the fire. April smiled. Welcome, little one, April said gently. What brings you back to us? Marushka, her voice trembling, explained about Helena's demand for strawberries. The months chuckled softly. April stood up and passed his place to June. June, with his sunny smile and golden hair, waved his hand, and the air grew warm and sweet. The snow disappeared completely, and the trees were covered in green leaves. Flowers bloomed everywhere, and soon, tiny red strawberries began to ripen on the vines. Marushka happily filled her basket with the sweet, juicy strawberries. June warned her, hurry home now, before April comes back and the flowers fade. Marushka thanked the 12 months and hurried back home. Helena and her mother were even more amazed this time. Strawberries! Helena shrieked, grabbing the basket and stuffing her mouth with the sweet berries. Where did you find them? Tell me. I want to go there myself. This time, Marushka couldn't keep the secret any longer. She told them about the clearing and the 12 months. Helena's eyes glittered with greed. I'm going there myself, she declared. I'll ask them for jewels and fine clothes. So, Helena, wrapped in her warmest fur coat, stomped off into the forest. She found the clearing and the 12 months sitting around the fire. She didn't curtsy or say hello. She just marched right up to them and demanded, give me jewels and fine clothes. I know you have them. The 12 months looked at her with stern faces. The current month, August, stood up. You are rude and greedy, little girl. You have not asked nicely. August shook his head sadly and gave the place near the fire to January. At once the wind blew a gust of cold air at Helena. The temperature dropped, and the snow began to fall. Helena shrieked and tried to run away, but the snow fell faster and faster, swirling around her in a blinding blizzard. She lost her way and wandered deeper and deeper into the forest, until she was completely lost. Back at home, Marushka waited and waited for Helena to return. But Helena never came back. Marushka, now alone in the little house, continued to do her chores, but she did them with a lighter heart. She remembered the kindness of the 12 months and lived a simple, peaceful life, always grateful for the gifts of each season. A handsome prince was passing through the village and came to know of kind Marushka. He eventually met her and they got married and lived happily ever after. And that, little ones, is how kindness and gratitude are always rewarded, and greed and rudeness never lead to happiness. The end.